Hi everyone, my name is Madeline Kaminsky. I am a human resources consultant here at SBS.
So thanks for joining us. So my name is Pam Fouquet and I'm the Indigenous recruiter for Saskatoon Police. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the positions that we hire for. I'll go through the requirements, and then kind of towards the end I will go through the actual application package and then the process in order to submit your application. And then Madeline, I'll turn it over to Madeline at some point, and she will discuss the positions that we have opening for our civilian positions and also going through the requirements at that time. So I will start with our regular constable. So the role of a police officer is very chaotic and can be very stressful, but can be very rewarding. Oftentimes when Madeline and I, when we go to our career fairs, we are often asked, what do police officers do? And so I'll start out by answering that one. So the role of a police officer is to protect life and property. They maintain peace and order. They make arrests and they detain offenders. They also enforce the law. So when they respond to calls of any nature, they have to investigate matters and decide whether it's a criminal element, if they need to lay a charge or not. So all in all, a police officer, or the characteristics of a police officer, is another question that is often asked of us. What characteristics does a police officer need to have in order to be a good police officer? And oftentimes what we find, participants who are calm in nature, level-headed, compassion, they show empathy on the people that they speak with, quick thinker, good communication, being a good listener, being knowledgeable, having a strong work ethic, being honest and fair, and having the interest in investigating is also a key element to becoming a police officer. So the requirements of a police officer: you must be 18 years of age. You must have your grade 12 or GED equivalent. You must be in excellent shape in order to, pass the POPAT stage. But for a lifestyle throughout your policing career, you will need to be in good physical shape. You must be a Canadian citizen and have your permanent residency. You must have a valid driver's license, be of good moral character, proven history of volunteerism. You must have a good work employment, so someone who can document your work history, excellent communication skills. There is a physical requirement that a person has to pass, and that kind of comes towards the end of our application, or at the end of our process. But you also have to pass a hearing test, a vision test, and you must have your CPR and first aid before you are eligible to apply. All right, so I will move on to our Special Constable Alternative Response Officer position. So this position is fairly new in our police service. We have had several classes go through, and we're very fortunate to have this position. So the characteristics of an ARO are very similar to that of a police officer. The role of an alternative response officer is very important and very unique, and they often carry three types of roles. So one role is a service role. So their mandate is to respond and facilitate outreach and referral agencies for vulnerable persons in our downtown core area. They will often meet with our business core people where they might have issues, and they will ask the alternative response officer some ideas of how to combat those issues. The other role of this position is an enforcement role. So they assist officers with traffic. They can transport prisoners to and from the courthouse, and they can provide relief to our detention officers and to our service center officers as well. The third role in this position is an investigative role. So these officers are able to take complaints from the public. They're able to take statements. They can retrieve and seize evidence. They can guard scenes as well. So this position is very highly sought after because of the background and the nature in which a person would be working with. And again, it's new to our city, and it started out as a pilot project actually, but now it's been so successful that each year we are now hiring for this position. So the requirements for the alternative response officer, and I guess everything is on our website as well, but again, you must be 18 years of age. This type of work does ask for a Bachelor of Social Work or some type of human justice degree, but it is not mandatory. We have hired people who do not have a degree, but perhaps do have a diploma in a similar field. But you must have a grade 12 or GED. You must pass the physical portion, so that is the POPAT. The time for that is 4:45. You must be a Canadian citizen or have your PR. You must have an unrestricted Class 5 driver's license, no convictions, so no CR. You must pass a medical test as well, and there's also a hearing component in which you have to pass, and that of course comes in towards the back end of the application process. And if you do have questions about that, I can certainly answer it, but basically when it comes to that part, like I will be asking you for that type of vision test, or we'll be sending you to our own medical doctors who facilitates our physical, so you don't have to actually worry about that until we get to that point. So that's some information on our alternative response officers. I'll move on to our next position that we hire for. This one is called the Special Constables in our Communications section. So this job is very exciting as well. This job is a very dynamic and fast-paced position. The role of a communications officer is very demanding and can be very stressful, but also very rewarding. And so communication officers are oftentimes the first voice that a person is going to call and hear. And so oftentimes they have a very vital, critical lifeline for that information to get out to our police officers. So their job is very important. They are the hub of our city. They are the hub of our police service. And so when a person calls in distress, whether it is 911 or perhaps it's the non-emergency line, our communication officers are highly trained to deal with those types of calls, and will then be able to dispatch our police officers to those types of calls. So the role of a communication officer is to gather as much information as they can so that they can pass that information to our officers on the street. And so again, part of the characteristics or part of the characteristics of this position, we also look at excellent listening skills, excellent communicator, must be a quick thinker, strong work ethic, must be willing to help people, compassionate, and of course, this job is a little bit different compared to the constable and the alternative response officer position because it's more of a multitasking role. And so part of that multitasking is, just to give you a little bit of a visual, is when you are taking a call, they have headsets and they are listening to the call. So as the call is coming in, they're listening to what the person is talking about or perhaps complaining about, and they are typing in that information into a computer, which is then dispatched to our police officers. So the information, again, is very critical, and the listening portion of that is very critical. So for those of you that are interested in that, the requirements, so you must have a grade 12 or GED. You would need a typing certificate of 50 words per minute. You must have a very good employment record, excellent communication skills. In this requirement, you do have to pass what's called a critical. So the critical is a multitasking test that comes after the pre-employment interview. And the critical is a pass or fail. So for an example, and you can Google this, so you would Google critical and it would come up as to what the baseline is for it. But basically, there's different categories in which you're tested in. And for example, one would be like memory recall. So part of the test was they would give you information and you would have to remember it so that on the next page you would be able to type it in, and that would be part of the test. So it is a multitasking role for sure. And so the requirements, I'll just add a couple more, is so you must be able to read several screens at a time. There are no medical restrictions per se, but you do have to be able to work 2 days, 2 nights, 12-hour shifts. So you would be able to work night shift, and you would have to go through a vision test, and I think all of these requirements are on our website. And so I think the last position that I could speak to is about experienced officers. That one so if people don't really know what that means, so what it means is experienced officers are officers who have had police training in other agencies. So for example, any municipal police service or RCMP. And so the same would be for them. They would still have to write the SIGMA, they'd have to run the POPAT, they would still have to go through all of the process like everybody else. And so I think I'm going to turn it over to you, Mads, and then you can talk about the civilian positions and all the positions that you hire for.
Okay, thank you, Pam. So civilian positions aren't something people normally think of when they think of working at a police station, but we actually employ over 150 civilians here at SPS. So we have all the different areas of a business that a regular organization would have. So we have support services in human resources, IT, finance, asset management and maintenance, records management, so our central records department, a lot of different admin positions as well. So all the regular positions that you would think of being in an ordinary business also are needed here at SPS as well. So within the service, we have unionized civilians amongst out-of-scope civilians as well. So all of our unionized employees are part of QP 59. And then our out-of-scope employees follow an agreement called ESA. That's an exempt staff agreement through the city of Saskatoon. So each position that we have all have different qualifications, different education is needed as well. There's positions available here for all levels of work experience. So we have entry-level positions all the way up to more senior management and director-level positions. The process for our union recruitment is a little bit different than our out-of-scope recruitment. So our unionized employees do follow a collective bargaining agreement. So when we hire in those positions, we do have to look at our most senior candidates first. So we look at our senior qualified candidates, and then if there aren't any qualified candidates who have seniority within the union, then we would look at our external candidates. So that differs a little bit from our out-of-scope. Our out-of-scope positions don't require looking at seniority when we hire for them. So we just look at their qualifications, and then we can move along with the process as normal. This may be why sometimes you find yourself applying for one of our positions as an external candidate and you're not getting a call back, or you're wondering whether we received your application. So sometimes it does take a few applications and a few times applying in order to be considered for one of our roles, just due to the seniority piece for our unionized positions. And then just a reminder, for our out-of-scope recruitment, we aren't bound to seniority, so we are able to look at all of our qualified candidates. All of our positions are posted on our website. We usually post them for about a week or so, sometimes up to 2 weeks, but really important to keep watching our website, keep looking back. If you find something that interests you, feel free to apply. One thing with our union positions, since we follow the collective bargaining agreement, we do follow our qualifications very closely. So we are only able to look at our qualified candidates that meet all of the requirements and the education needed for that position. So within our union recruitment, we do have to just look at all of our qualified candidates. But other than that, that's a little bit about our civilian recruitment here at SPS. I know it's not something that everyone thinks of when they want to work at a police station, but a lot of great options for people with different degrees or different interests. Maybe you're not wanting to be on the street and hit the ground running with our officers, but you can definitely work within the building and make a difference as well.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that information. So I am going to talk a little bit about the application package. So for those of you on our website, under each tab of our positions, there is an application that you can click on and you can fill out. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the whole application and what we look at as recruiters. And so depending on which application you are going to choose to apply with, we are going to look at certain areas of an application, and when we look at those applications, we then compare it to other applications in our process. So, for example, in a regular constable alternative response officer application, we will look at, and communications, we will look at the Sigma score. So you get 2 times to write this test. It is the mental ability test, and if you are successful, you never have to write it again. We will look at your POPAT times, so we will look at competitive times. Often for males, it's a sub 4-minute time, and then for females, we look at around 4 minutes and 20 seconds to be a competitive time. We look at education, so any post-secondary education is very valuable. Anything that has the background of emergency services or pertaining to law enforcement is very valuable as well, but it is not mandatory. A question I often get is what we look at for education specifically. And if you are maybe just getting out of grade 12 and you are wanting to get some post-secondary education and policing is your end goal, then some diplomas and degrees that we would consider would be very valuable to have would be a diploma such as your criminal justice or justice studies, psychology, sociology, anything in that realm or in the human services realm is very important, but is not mandatory again. We also look at work and life experience. So any relatable work pertaining to law enforcement or human services. So perhaps you're a paramedic or you work at the courthouse, or maybe you're a sheriff, or maybe you work in corrections. Anything of that background is very important to this role of policing, just because it gives you an idea of working and handling prisoners perhaps, or you're dealing with, you know, having to talk to people is very important. So I think any kind of de-escalation techniques, something like that is also important to have as a background. The other kind of area that we look at is maturity. So when we look at your personal disclosure form, we are often looking to see what you've done in your past, but we are also looking at currently who you hang around with. Perhaps you surround yourself with people that do not carry the core values of the Saskatoon Police Service. So that might be something that you want to consider when you are filling out your application. We have had people deferred because of that specific example, just because they're hanging around with people who are constantly surrounding themselves and that applicant with illegal drugs. So that might be something to consider when filling out the application. The last part that we look at when we are looking at an application is volunteerism. So where you are spending your time, volunteerism. I often get phone calls asking where they should volunteer. But what I often say is if you have an area of whatever that is that you're passionate about, I would say that's where you should be volunteering at. The other thing I would suggest too is invest in yourself. So when we compare your application and your resume to others, and you have certain categories that we talked about, I think that's important, but also to, if you want to, be a step up or a level up than somebody else, then maybe consider some of the things that I mentioned, at least as a start point anyway. All right, so I'm going to move into the recruiting process of each of these applications. And so for the regular and communications applications, so first off, you have to write a SIGMA. So for those of you who do not know what a SIGMA is, the SIGMA is a mental ability test. It is 74 questions. You have to write it in 35 minutes. The passing score is 57%. And the categories in that mental ability test is spelling, vocabulary, grammar, punctuation, and police problem solving questions. And so 57% is the passing mark for that. For those that have little knowledge about that, you can look up Sigma on the internet, or you can look at the policeprep.com. There is a fee for that, but oftentimes I've been told people who have utilized that program has been very successful. So I would leave that up to you to decide if that's something that you would like to take that on. Our next testing date is March 13th and 14th. So the 13th is for the Sigma, the 14th is for the POPAT. And then we have a time where we do not test until June would be our next testing session after the March date. The next step in the application process is the POPAT. So this one is the police officer physical agility test that everybody must pass in order to move on to the next stage. And so again, I had mentioned for a competitive time for females, we would look at 4 minutes and 20 seconds. For male, we would be looking at a sub 4. Obviously, the time to pass is 4:45. The reason why we have those competitive timelines is because if you are selected to go to college, the time that you must pass at the end of college is 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So regardless of where you are in your training, that's the time that should always be your goal prior to coming to us, because that would be your end goal when you are done college. So that is something just to be mindful of. The POPAT, the U of S PAC Center, they have drop-in sessions every Monday. So for those of you that have never ran the POPAT or have no idea what the POPAT is all about, we work in partnership with them, and they have these drop-in sessions every Monday from 6 to 7 that you would be able to register for. I would say if you are able to join them, please do so, because they're very helpful in helping you with different techniques in order to pass the course. All right, so moving on. So after POPAT, once you're successful there, you are going to be called in for a pre-employment interview. Then if you are successful at that stage, you are going to move to the polygraph. If you're successful at that stage, you are going to move on to what's called the psychological testing. So there is 2 parts to the psychological testing. The first part is writing a test. The second part is sitting with our psychologist and going over your test results. Once that is completed, and if you're successful there, we will do a background check and a reference check on you. And if you are successful, we will invite you to a final panel interview, which at that point, if you are successful, you would be offered employment to work here at Saskatoon Police Service. And if you have been hired for the regular portion, then once you are hired, you go down to college for 21 weeks. College is located in Regina at the U of R Police College, and you would be there and you would be trained in areas of criminal law and justice, defensive tactics, report writing, note taking, firearms. You would be trained in defensive driving. You would be trained in court procedures, conflict resolution, diversity training, and high intensity physical training continues throughout the whole 21 weeks. So that's why we often suggest you come to us in your best shape and not come to us to get into shape. So make sure that that's not a hinder and that doesn't challenge you from the actual process.
So the exact dates of Police College, Pam, is there certain points of the year that they host Police College?
Yeah, they do actually. So we have 2 classes that go to college, one in January and one in July. And so the in-between months is to process the application. So for example, we just had a class here go down to college in January. But we would have hired them from June on. We would have looked at their applications. We would have pushed them through the Sigma, the polygraph, all of those stages to then be selected in early December, and then they go to college in January. So now, right now, we are accepting applications for our regular constable position for the class that would go in July to college. So we do have one more testing here in March. If those of you who are interested in being competitive for the July class, you have one more chance in March to write it and run the POPAT. If, for example, the March is coming up too soon and you're not able to get your application in, you can always run in June, which would be our next testing date, and be considered for the January class of 2025.
Thank you, Pam. Yeah. Next question here. Is a driver's license a must-have requirement?
Yes, it is. So for both the alternative response officer position and the regular constable position, you do have to have a valid unrestricted driver's license, and that is because you will be driving a police vehicle, and for the alternative response officer, you will be driving the special constable vehicle as well.
Okay. And how long is a Sigma valid for?
So once you write and pass the Sigma, you do not have to write it ever again.
Okay. So let's see. If someone wants to try the POPAT separately from when they write the Sigma, that's okay?
So if you are wanting to run it as a practice, I would suggest the drop-in sessions that the PAC Center have. It's not set up otherwise. If you were to run an official run with us, it is $60, so I don't know if that is your best bet. I would say pay I think it's $20 or $15 for a drop-in session, and utilize that hour to practice and get better on your time, and then come to us when it's official. Because what happens is if you apply with us and you want to run the POPAT, each time you fail basically goes against your application. So if I can use you and I as an example, if I apply and I run the POPAT and I fail it miserably, and you run it and you pass it, my application is going to go down because you've passed it and I haven't. So we want people to come to us who are physically fit and in shape and ready to go, so that we can push your application along and not have to worry about being hindered because of the POPAT because you're not physically fit. And you know what, sometimes I know it's a very challenging obstacle course, and so this is why you need to train, and I will often suggest 3 to 5 months to train for this because it is so hard and it is so challenging. So
okay. What was the date for the female POPAT training? Was that April 23rd, Pam?
So April 23rd here at the Saskatoon Police Service. You have to register for it on our website underneath the Information and Testing tab. You should be able to register for that about a month in advance or so. But just keep on checking our website and you'll be able to check off the registration button there.
Okay. And do you receive your score right after you write the Sigma?
So there's a little bit of a time lapse, and it's only because we're waiting for the score to be sent back to us. We tell you whether you're successful or not. We do not give you the exact score that you got.
Perfect. And are you able to share what the passing score for a Sigma is?
57%.
Okay, so let's say somebody is healing from a surgery, but will be done before they go to college. Is that going to hinder their application, or are they able to proceed with that?
Say this again.
So Emmanuel is healing from LASIK surgery, but
yeah.
will be done before he would have to go to college.
Okay.
Could he still proceed with the process?
Okay, so we do have a note under our requirements. So if you do have LASIK surgery, you have to wait 6 months before you're eligible to apply. Now, the reason that is because we found applicants who had laser surgery, they do have to be pepper sprayed within the first 3 to 4 weeks of their training, which sometimes had a reverse effect on their surgery. So this is why we ask that they wait 6 months before they then apply with us. So whatever timeline that is for you, then I would even suggest that if you still have to wait a month before your 6 months is up, you can start the process with us so that by the time you're hired, that would be past your 6 months. If you're able to kind of coordinate it that way, that would work.
Okay. We have one more question here about the medical exam. Do you have any details that you can share about that?
So the medical exam comes at the end of the process. So once you've been offered the position, it is pending a medical exam. So we set up the time and the date for the exam and we pay for it. You just attend and it's not, I don't think they do very much. It's only 45 minutes, so it's not extensive by any means, but they do want to make sure that you are, healthy and ready to go to college because of the physical component to the training.
Okay. And another question here, is the Sigma valid for all of Saskatchewan or just Saskatoon?
Good question. So once you write and pass the Sigma, it is good for any agency that also writes the Sigma. So it is good province-wide. It's so for example, I know Alberta, they write a different test, but I believe in Winnipeg, like in Manitoba, they would write the same test, so that would work there as well.
Okay, perfect. And are applications able to be submitted online via email?
So you have to print it out and then fill it out by hand and then scan it back to our email. Or the other thing, if you don't have a printer, you can come pick up an application here at the Saskatoon Police Service at our service center, and they can give you the application, and then you can drop it off again, or you can submit it by email as an attachment.
Okay. Lots of questions about Sigma today, Pam. Do you have any book recommendations for preparation?
So just the policeprep.com might be something you might want to research. If you go to any bookstore in the law enforcement area, you might want to look in that area just to see what kind of books they have. If you send me an email at the end of this, I can send you a sample of what the Sigma looks like so that you have an idea, kind of what to study for, what to cover off when you're studying. The other book that I could suggest is the Norman Hall Law Enforcement book. And that one it is quite a thicker book, and it does have some categories that do not apply to the Sigma. So if you just concentrated on the spelling, the vocabulary, the punctuation and grammar and police problem solvings of that book, that would be all you would need to study.
Okay. And are the Sigma scores used for comparing applicants' competitiveness?
Yeah, I mean, it is just a guide that we use. It's not a be all end all. If you are successful, that is, what we're looking for, obviously. But, sometimes we look at that because we want to ensure that if we select you to go to college, that the law portion or the study portion isn't going to be an issue. So it is something that we look at for sure.
Okay. Can you wear glasses in police academy, police college?
Yeah, so there is a vision test that you have to go through. I know some people wear glasses or they will wear some kind of contact lenses. But yeah, when you wear glasses, you certainly can. I do know some areas of, for example, defensive tactics, you wouldn't be able to wear it in that. Or perhaps if you're maybe outside and you're doing some form of defensive tactics, they might fog up right now in the winter, but certainly in the summer months, you can certainly wear them.
Okay. And we have someone who's going to be a permanent resident by June, but are they able to start their process before that?
Yeah, you can start the process as long as you have your permanent residency. You would be eligible to apply.
Okay. And is someone with diabetes able to apply for an application?
Yeah, I think you would apply, and then once you go through the process and you do the medical, they would be telling of whether or not that you were a suitable candidate for a police officer. You're going to know more about that than we are, right? You're going to know what things might hinder you or not. So when you look at the requirements, you will have to look to see if that is going to hinder you from the positions um, that you apply for. So you would probably know a little bit more about that, whoever's asking the question, than I would. But um, we do hire all kinds of people with all kinds of things. So it would certainly be up to the medical portion of the process.
Okay. And a couple more questions here. Do you
Sure.
recommend students in university taking time off from school in order to go to police college?
Nope. I would suggest if you are in the middle of a degree or a diploma, I would say complete your degree or complete your diploma and then come to us. Again, if one of the things that we do look at is we look at life and work experience. So if you have that diploma or that degree, that's excellent, but we also look at the work history. So if you have very little work history and you've only been in our country for a very short time, we need references. So we need 5 work references and we need 10 associate references. So you do have to work for a considerable amount of time in order to have those people speak on your behalf. So I wouldn't rush it. We're always here. We're always hiring. I would say better yourself. Finish your diploma. Finish your degree. Work for a couple years and then come to us.
Okay, thank you, Pam. One more question here. How long is the process overall?
All right, so it will vary a little bit, but for the regular constable position, it varies from 3 to 5 months, depending on when you apply. For the alternative response officer, it's about 3 to 4 months. And then for the communications position, it's about 3 to 4 months as well. So it's a little bit shorter.
Okay. Thank you, Pam. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions. Hopefully we were able to cover all of your questions in the chat. Oh, it looks like maybe we have one more here. So what are some of the benefits of joining SPS? Do you want to go first, Pam?
Okay, so yeah, we have lots of benefits. So obviously, each position we have a different wage scale. So you start off with a very good salary. We have a lot of benefits. We have a pension that we pay into, which is very, very good. We have different, I guess it's called EFAP. So it's if you have any whether it's yourself or family members that are struggling with mental health or some type of, whatever it might be, you would be able to have some counseling sessions that are free of charge through our EFAP program. Uh, Let me think. We have medical coverage. We have, massage coverage. We have all different kinds of medical coverages that, um, other agencies have, but I think we always seem to have a little bit better coverage, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, on the civilian side of things, we also have pension and benefits for our permanent employees. Something for all of our employees here at SBS too is we have on-site parking, so a really good option for downtown parking as well. We have a great team here, so I'd say the people we work with on a daily basis
Yeah.
is a benefit as well. Pam and I get to work together very often, and that's always fun. Even though I'm a civilian and she's a constable, we still get to work together and do some great work. Let's see. Oh, this is a good question. How does SBS compare to other agencies such as Calgary Police in Alberta?
How do we compare? Well, I mean, I guess if I can answer it from a policing perspective, so we do a different process than Alberta, but in Saskatchewan, especially in Saskatoon, when you are hired on by us, you would police Saskatoon. So our city isn't as big as Calgary. I know living or working within Saskatoon, getting around is fairly easy. You're not caught in traffic jams for most of the day, so I find that getting around and going from call to call is a little bit easier. I've never worked in Calgary, so I can only say what I can compare Saskatoon to, and that would be the size and the population. Um, but each city across Canada would have the same, issues that every other municipal or RCMP have. So that would be the same, attending to those types of calls. But I would think home life might be a little bit easier to afford. Just our housing prices aren't as expensive in Alberta. Um, yeah, so the cost of living, food perhaps is a little bit cheaper. Um, and just getting around the city. We have lots of parks. We have lots of big box stores that, Alberta has as well. We have the University of Saskatchewan here. We have other, Sask Polytech. We have other different colleges that people can attend and get into. We have a big ice rink. Like we have a lot of amenities that, Calgary is a similar one. But I guess if you're thinking about being a police officer and policing in the city, I would say the commute and moving around the city is probably a little bit easier.
Okay. Another good question here, Pam. Is the training paid?
Yes. Yes. So excellent question. So once you are hired on by us and you go to college, we pay for your accommodations, your food. We pay for your parking, and you receive a salary at that time. Thank you for that.
Yes. Okay, looks like there's a question for me. So the question is, are there options for people coming from the business field? This person is a marketing major.
Yay.
So definitely applicable within our civilian positions. We have a fantastic area of SBS called Public Relations and Strategic Communications. So definitely a degree that could apply within that area and other areas as well within SBS. So definitely options for our marketing majors out there.
Excellent. I noticed that there was a question that popped up that they couldn't get onto the website to register for the POPAT or the Sigma. And I just wanted to let you know that if you are trying to register for it and it's not working, it's because it's not open yet. So probably wait another couple of days or a week. You'll have to keep checking, but it'll be open and you'll know it's open because you'll be able to click on that little bubble.
Okay. And what is the scheduling like when you start at SBS?
Good question. So It is shift work, so it's 2 days, 2 nights. Your day shifts are, you either start at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning, and then your night shifts are the same. You'd start at 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night and work right till 6 or 7 that morning. So 2 days, 2 nights, you follow a shift, and you are with that shift till you are no longer in patrol and maybe you're in another unit.
Okay. Is there a charge for the Sigma and POPAT exam? I think you maybe did mention this, Pam.
Yeah, so the Sigma is free. You just have to register through our website. But the POPAT, you do have to pay, and that's through the U of S. We have them run the POPAT for us. So you would have to pay $60 on their website. But once you register through us, you would get the link from our admin assistant, and she would help you with that.
Okay. A question about the specialty units at SBS. So, how do those work? Kind of beyond being a constable. Yeah.
Good question. Sure, good question. So once you are on patrol for up to 5 to 7 years, you would be eligible to put your name in and compete for any other unit that would be a constable, I guess, role. And so once you have competed for it and you get that position, then you would be in a role up to 3 to 5 years in that role. And so, for example, if you become an investigator, a detective in the break and enter unit, you are trained once you get into that unit. So you are going to be put on courses, sent away on courses, so that you're trained in order to learn how to investigate those types of calls. And so it'd be the same for any other unit. So if you go into the drugs and the gang unit, you would be trained to be in that unit. Same with the drug unit. If you're in that unit, you'd be trained for that unit. If you go into the school unit, you're given courses on, what to expect when you're in schools and that type of stuff. So you're constantly training. And so by the end of your time at Saskatoon Police Service, you become an expert in all these little, units that you've worked in, which at the end of the day, if you decide to retire and go into another position, you are highly different, you are highly trained in different facets of the police service.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Looks like we have a couple more questions here. Is there a time limit that you have to run your POPAT after you do your Sigma? Any time restrictions?
So on our website, we have the dates posted, but one day you will write the Sigma, and then the following day you will run the POPAT. And that generally how it works for January, February, and March. And then from March on is when we are setting up for the process for the regular process for the July class. So then the next class would start up in June again, the next testing session. So June 18th and 19th would be the next testing session if you can't get into the March sessions.
Okay. And let's say somebody didn't pass their Sigma in January, are they able to try again in March?
So you have to wait 60 days in order to pass it. If you fail it after the first time, you would have to wait 6 months.
Okay.
So you have to wait 60 days and then 6 months.
Okay, and how many times can you write?
Twice.
2 times?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good one. How many police officers are being hired every year?
Yeah, good question. So for our constables, we hire up to 20 a year. For our AROs, we hire up to 7 to 8 a year. And then for our special constables in communications, we hire up to seven people as well. So we do have different processes, but and you just have to wait for that process. So, for example, the alternative response officers, we just hired 7 officers for that position. So the next time we hire is going to be this time next year. So then people who are interested in that position is going to submit their application in the fall and look to run their POPAT in September. And then we would consider your application for the next ARO class.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just to confirm one last time, you can only write the SIGMA twice in your lifetime.
Correct.
Okay, a little bit. Do you know, or can you share anything, Pam, about the interview process and the kind of questions that are
Okay.
asked?
It is not a star format, so it's an interview where we like to get to know you. So you will be asked multitude of questions, but we are just trying to get to know you and know your background and your work history and stuff like that. So it's I don't know, myself and Sergeant Prato, we run the interviews, and it's not scary or anything like that. You don't have to be nervous for it, but you do have to be somewhat prepared. But it is not a star format.
And I know we said earlier, maybe our Steve, you didn't see it, but how long is the hiring process? I think it varies.
Yeah, so it'll vary with each process that we do. So for regular, it'll be anywhere from 4 to 5 months, and for ARO and communications, anywhere from 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah.